What's up, guys? How is everyone doing? All right. When I last left off, it was a couple weeks ago. You can actually look at my little chronology of games here. I had just experienced the purging of all of my online Magic records dating back a couple of years, and I was in the process of playing a bunch of Edric games, racking up the wins to try to just to build up the games played a little bit, testing out the Edric deck. And actually the last game that I showcased for you guys was in fact an Edric match, which occurred right about there. Looks like it was the 23rd of May. And I've continued to play, although I stopped playing the Edric deck just to sort of, well, I guess for the sake of variety. I just play so many blue decks, and people had actually requested in the comments that they wanted me to revisit mono black. So that actually made sense, because I've actually been looking at my mono black deck. It's based around Skithiryx, the Blight Dragon, the 5-mana haste infect dragon, and really hadn't played or experimented with the deck in quite some time, even though a fair number of tools for it have been printed. And that was really evident when I went back to go and check out the deck and saw that it had, it was missing things going back a couple of years. So I retooled it a little bit. I can actually go over to take a look at it right now, just briefly. Let's see here. I have it listed as mono black control. This is my current Skithiryx, the Blight Dragon deck. Mono black is a really interesting and tough nut to crack in Commander. I think the deck is probably really just suited for multiplayer, because mono black wants to just be playing a lot of mana and doing big mono black things, and it just doesn't have a very robust early game. You can accelerate the deck a bunch with all of these early mana plays, and you can see I'm really kind of running all the good ones. I've got 5 0-mana artifacts, and obviously Everflowing Chalice isn't one of them. But I got Vault and Soul Ring, Wayfarer's Bauble. There's a lot of 2-mana artifacts to choose from too. Arcane Signet, of course, I wanted that to go in the deck. Charcoal Diamond is still in the deck because you just kind of, it's a very, very, the deck is very hungry for black mana sources, and you just can't afford to play things that make mana but don't really make black reliably unless they are either really powerful cards like Grim Monolith, of course, which powers out all the other mana artifacts, or things like Thought Vessel, which combo incredibly well with the various card drawing spells in the deck, and of course with Necropotence. So a few other high-end things. And this deck is really interesting because it hums whenever you draw fast mana. And obviously you can say that about a lot of decks, but this deck really hums when you draw a lot of fast mana. And in fact, when you get probably 4 to 5 mana by turn 3, not only can you just play the dragon and pressure your opponent tremendously, but you're able to cast these sort of high-end tutors and just get them off balance with discard and eventually land Necropotence and then just draw a million cards and pretty much win from there. And in fact, it's even easier now that 1v1 reverted back to 40 life for some reason a little while ago. And so having 40 life to burn on Necropotence is pretty insane. I don't really think, other than that, I've really made a lot of changes to the deck. This was added a little while ago. Obviously, that's not a new card. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Just looking through it. It all seems pretty much the same. Yeah, actually, it's missing. I just noticed it's missing Prismatic Vista, which of course belongs in the deck because fetch lands are awesome. And yeah, I think other than that, I need to make that change. The rest of the deck is pretty much the same, but I am I just have to sort of say that this deck is a transitional form. It's definitely a work in progress, mainly because I kind of got it to a point where it felt strong, but I haven't really worked on tuning it extensively after that. And I really think that you're kind of just fundamentally limited by what you can do with the archetype, it being sort of clunky mono black. And I definitely feel that this deck is solidly in the B tier category. It can really, really punish creature heavy strategies because it has multiple powerful sweepers. And that seems all well and good, but when you play against really devoted artifact-based strategies, blue-based strategies and stuff, you're often just so far behind from the very beginning, and it can be very frustrating to play. So I don't really highly recommend this deck unless you're really, really into playing mono black. And if you like to play mono black, I think that this is a pretty good take on it. I definitely think the control archetype is just best in Commander, and I actually had some debate about which I polled a number of trusted friends of mine about which Commander they thought I should go with. Now that I was revisiting the deck, it was pretty much a toss-up between Skithiryx and Erebos, although other people pointed out some other really good ones. There's Sidisi, the one that allows you to demonic tutor every time you play it. And then there's that one that allows you to pay life for black spells, which I think is worth taking a look at. But fundamentally, I do like the fact that Skithiryx just really pressures people. If they tap out or tap low, you can often just land the dragon, and very few decks have an answer to a black regenerating flyer with Infect. It's surprisingly robust and very often goes the distance, although it certainly feels foolish when you're playing against lots of counterspells. I'm running Cavernous Souls, of course, for that reason. But without further ado, let's get back to the game here. Let's see here. All right, so first game I wanted to showcase with this deck, I played very recently. It's against Mr. Renjin here. You can see the overall results. 44 wins, 2 losses. These draws are just playing solitaire games against myself. First loss was against Edric match against Kalia player back on the 21st of May. And this was an interesting game. Unfortunately, it involves a lot of tapping and untapping of a Basalt Monolith, and I'm not sure if I want to make a video about it just because I think you guys have better things to do than sit around and watch Basalt Monolith tap and untap for 15 minutes. But if people want to see that game, I'm happy to do a video for it. And then I lost to Magical Flurries. That'll be the next video, and I believe that was with Mono Black. But before we jump into that game, let's kick it off against Mr. Renjin. This was played back on the 9th, so 5 days ago. It paused for a very long time there, which often is an indicator that the replay is gonna fail. Let's see if I can close the chat here. Hide chat. Let's get that out of here. Hide game log. All right. Yeah, you don't want any spoilers. All right. Mono Black. Game 1. First game in a recording in, God, at least 3 years. And I'm up against, hey, look, my arch nemesis. Oh, and it's jumping ahead. That's unfortunate. All right, stop. Okay, didn't go too far. Well, I was going to talk about why I kept this opening hand. This is a really, really sketchy opening hand. Of course, you can see the 7 right here. And, but the fact that I drew Ancient Tomb means that the Cabal Coffers is essentially a swamp. A very painful and crappy swamp, but a swamp all the same. And of course, if I'm able to draw into 1 more mana, then suddenly the Cabal Coffer starts to look better and better. And the fact he's playing Omnath makes the Consumed Spirit a lot better. I knew I could cast Hymn to Torok on turn 3, barring not drawing another swamp, which I hopefully would be able to take something critical out of his hand. And so I duressed him turn 1. You can see what he had in hand here. Darksteel Plate is a bit strange. Llanowar Tribe, very scary. Arbor Elf. Nyxbloom Ancient, a card I'm very fond of in Omnath multiplayer, but I don't think is quite good enough for 1v1. And Asceticism, which is quite interesting. I think probably unnecessary in Omnath, but I can understand why you play with it. I think this is certainly a multiplayer card, but a lot of people in the 1v1 rooms play their multiplayer decks anyway. They don't have any difference between the two. I tend to make my decks usually tend to be about 4 to 5 cards different when I do play them in multiplayer, but multiplayer online is just kind of awful, so I try to avoid it. But anyway, he's got this card in his hand, Canvas Transformation, which I actually have been considering for Omnath for quite some time. In fact, I think it's probably going to put it in just because it's sort of a catch-all, so good for dealing with troublesome enemy commanders and nasty creatures that fly and titans and various things like that. And the fact that you get to draw a card off of it makes it even better. And generally, Omnath can ignore 3/3. In fact, you can pretty much ignore 3/3s for the most part in Commander. So 2 mana, cantrip, kill a creature, pretty good for green. I think it's probably worth the cut. So definitely getting rid of that. It nullifies my dragon and none of the other cards in his hand. I mean, obviously, if I could, I'd take Llanowar Tribe probably. I'd take Arbor Elf for sure if I had the choice. He only has 1 forest. But I'm hoping he doesn't draw another land for a little while, and hopefully I can get a 3rd mana source and just kill the Arbor Elf before he can use it. Let's see what happens here. Pop Skithiryx up there. All right, Forest, Arbor Elf. That was pretty much expected. All right, come on, deck. Let's get a Swamp and just winnow that hand down some more. Promise of Power. Love this card, but unfortunately, very, very far from casting it. I can't do anything this turn. I just got to hope he doesn't have another Forest. Because if he does have another Forest, I'm going to be in a world of hurt. I don't have any answers to anything right now, and he does have a 2nd Forest. All right. This thing is so insane. Gilded Lotus for 3 mana that can hit you for 3, and it's an elf, so it activates other elf things in the deck too. Such an amazing card. I could not add this thing to my Omnath deck fast enough when it came out. All right, come on, deck. I believe in you. Well, Coalition Relic is not bad, but looking at his mana, he's got 3, 4, 5, 6 mana already. I have nothing in my hand that can answer Nyxbloom Ancient. And going back and looking here, he's got Asceticism. The rest of his hand isn't all that scary, but that Nyxbloom Ancient, if it gets out, I have nothing in my hand that can interact with it. And I kind of decide that, well, he's only got 4 cards left in his hand, and as much as I would love to play Coalition Relic because it turns on so many cards in the deck, I really, really can't risk him playing the Nyxbloom Ancient next turn. It just makes, I mean, come on, let's get real, right? This thing taps for 9. Yeah, it's just totally ridiculous. I can't let it happen. So with that in mind, I decide it's better for me to just go for the 50-50 and try to hymn the Nyxbloom out of his hand. Because I know he's got a forest, and lo and behold, booyah, got it. All right, very, very lucky. Well, not tremendously lucky, just a coin flip. Glad to win the coin flip there. See what happens next. Not like I'm completely out of the woods here. He does still have 6 mana and can top deck all sorts of nasty things. All right, I seem to have 5. And he thinks for a while here, and in his position, I can understand why he would play Asceticism, just because he's worried about me, you know, given the fact that I am mono black. He's worried about me casting something that might kill his creature if he plays an Omnath. But most of the time in mono black, particularly in Commander, people don't tend to run a lot of spot removal, and tends to be more Wrath type effects. And I think with that in mind, I think that just playing Omnath here and pressuring my hand and life total really quickly, particularly when I make that last play where I'm using Ancient Tomb over a swamp. This is a read where, you know, you're pretty much certain that your opponent doesn't really have much extra mana available. And when that happens, pressuring their life and just beating them to death before they can draw mana is often the right approach, particularly with Omnath, as that's one of the primary ways that this deck interacts with people, is just with opponent removal. It just kills them. All right. Well, his guys are hexproof. And he attacks for 1. All right, I really need a swamp here. Demonic Tutor. Well, that's not a swamp. So the question is, folks, what do you get? I know people like the tutor quiz. So many choices here. I'll give you a couple more seconds to look it over. All right, time's up. I chose that card. Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, absolutely insane here. Turns this into a swamp, turns Cabal Coffers into a swamp, is a swamp. Suddenly, I go from having 1 swamp and play to 4, which means that this card basically makes, I go from 2, let's see, 4, yeah, 2 to 6 mana. It makes 4 mana. It's a land that makes 4. Completely crazy. And playing it allows me to also play Coalition Relic. So I put so much mana to play that turn. 5 mana sources. And now we're instantaneously in parity, and it's a real game now, which is awesome. All right, he just drew another land. He's tapping some stuff, and down comes Omnath. God, you can just see how scary this is. And then he plays Bear Umbra. Kind of a groovy card. It's a bit like the Sword of Feast and Famine effect, that it untaps all your lands, but of course you do... Oh, I guess it works when you attack, too, which is kind of cool. You don't even have to hit them with it, and it's Totem Armor. So now his guy is hexproof and has Totem Armor on it. And in fact, Totem Armor protects creatures from destruction, including from burial. Because I believe, yeah, maybe originally, I don't think it says it on Damnation now, but for a while Damnation would have said bury all creatures instead of destroy. And now I think it's actually destroy can't be regenerated again. I'd have to check the gather on that, but I wasn't going to take the risk. Well, we'll see. I'll look at the card when I go through it. Okay, so charge at the end of the turn. Mox Diamond. That is not really a very good top deck. Well, that's quite okay. I have plenty of mana to do stuff anyway. So I'm going to add 4. And cast 3 mana Beseech the Queen. So let's take a look at Damnation here. Destroy all creatures. They can't be regenerated. So it's interesting. For a while, I believe the text on Wrath of God, and I don't know if Damnation was printed in that window, but there was definitely a time, I think, when Wrath of God said bury all creatures, when bury was a keyword. And then they reverted back to just destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. So in fact, Damnation, current Damnation would not kill Omnath, Locus of Mana with Bear Umbra on it, but at some point in time it would have. Kind of funny. Just a little bit of magic history. Of course, I'm not getting Damnation. I'm getting its little brother, which is actually much better. I'm casting Toxic Deluge here. And fortunately, I can tap Ancient Tomb for black. So I don't even have to take any damage. It's just an easy Deluge for 3, clearing the board and reducing him down to just 3 land. All right, he's in pretty bad shape. He can't even cast his Omnath yet. He only has one card in hand. Ever-flowing chalice. Okay. All right. So, number of different options here. Obviously, I could go for Promise of Power and draw 5, but in this sort of situation where we're kind of in a lull in the action, this is the exact reason why Skithiryx is the commander in this deck over some slower options, because against a lot of decks, you just need a small little window to deploy the commander, and you can just close the game out before they can even do anything. And this is definitely one of those cases. We do have a little lull in the action, and he's already down to 4. I mean, already down to just 6 infect left till he's dead. And I can always play the Promise Power next turn, since it's pretty hard to draw a card better than this thing right now. All right, he does have 5 mana. He gets to play Omnath. I get to charge at the end of the turn. Nice. Hitting a swamp there is so nuts, because it's 2 more mana. So I'm going to activate my Cabal Coffers. And I decide after some thinking here that I don't have any real use for probably don't really have much use for the cards post-combat. I'm not too worried. I think I'm just going to entwine the Promise of Power, drawing 5 and getting an 8/8 demon. And I get a whole bunch of other good stuff off there, playing my Mox Diamond so I can regenerate Skithiryx if I need to. I mean, he's down to 1 card in hand. He's facing an 8/8 demon and the 4/4 infect guy. All right, what you got? Seedborn Muse. Pretty cool card. Certainly neat with Omnath. Not good in this situation. So at the end of the turn, I'm going to just cast Tainted Pact. The first card off the top. Actually, I guess there's a Sign in Blood and a Swamp. Actually, maybe it's just Sign in Blood. I go past the Sign in Blood and I take the Mana Crypt. Yeah, I think I passed 1 Swamp, actually. It's a neat thing about Tainted Pact. Obviously, you can really push your luck in Commander because you have all singletons except for the lands, so you can kind of gamble. The card is really, really impressive, honestly, and I think very underplayed. But none of that matters. This game is all over. This is a cool card in the deck. I really, really like Brain Spoil, actually. Another card you hardly ever see used, but the Transmute for a 5 is really awesome. There's a lot of extremely powerful 5s in the deck. This is one of them, of course. There's also the Diabolic Revelation, which is a X-Spell Demonic Tutor. And with all the big mana ramp in this deck, you can often cast the Diabolic Revelation for 5, 6, 7, 8 cards. It's pretty hard to lose when you can Demonic Tutor 8 times with 1 spell. But that doesn't matter right now. I'm just going to play some more stuff just because it's cool. 2 Lotuses, guys attacking for the win, and that is it. Not the closest game of all time, but I felt like it was a nice little demonstration of some of the tools of the Skithiryx deck for those who are not familiar with it. I hope to have some games that are a little bit more contested. But what I find with the mono black deck, honestly, is you either blow out the other person or you tend to get blown out yourself by the really, really good competitive deck lists. And I do expect to lose my fair share of games when I play this deck. But this was a win. Next game coming up will, in fact, be a loss. So stay tuned for that. Post any questions or comments about cards you think I might not be using that were oversights, and I will be happy to read them. Thanks, guys. See you soon.